sans vouloir anticiper sur la suite du débat, vous féliciter également. Et vous dire que vous avez aussi une coupe pour la qualité avec laquelle vous tenez les débats. Cela dit, je voudrais adresser aussi mes félicitations à toutes celles et à tous ceux qui ont fait des présentations pour ces rapports qui sont très riches en informations de qualité, notamment sur la situation de la région et le fonctionnement de certaines institutions. Cela dit, mon intervention va porter sur l'évolution de la situation économique et sociale pour la région de l'Afrique du Nord qui a été présentée par Madame la directrice de la CIA. Je voudrais juste compléter cette présentation, notamment pour la partie relative à la situation économique, que également pour certains pays depuis 2014, certaines économies quand même font face à un choc sur les termes d'échange, sur notamment la dépréciation des prix des matières premières sur le marché international. C'est qui a impacté négativement l'activité économique de ces pays dans son ensemble. C'est notamment le cas des pays exportateurs de minerais métalliques. Je vais prendre comme exemple le cas de la Mauritanie, qui a donc subi depuis 2014 une détérioration des échanges suite à la baisse des prix du minerai métallique et le marché international qui a vraiment impacté aussi bien la croissance économique que les revenus budgétaires et les revenus du secteur extérieur. Donc, à mon avis, il serait important de mentionner ces aspects sur le rapport. D'autre part, je souhaite également que dans ce rapport, qu'on essaie de mentionner l'évolution des échanges extérieurs entre ces pays, c'est-à-dire l'évolution des échanges intra-régionaux, pour savoir réellement comment s'est comporté l'échange entre ces différents pays, notamment d'Afrique du Nord. En ce qui concerne la situation sociale, je crois que le rapport s'est beaucoup plus appesanti sur deux composants, à part l'éducation et l'emploi. Ce sont importants dans le développement social, mais je pense que la prochaine fois, il faudra essayer d'englober une gamme beaucoup d'indicateurs sociaux, notamment le cas de la santé qui est important, l'accès à l'eau, l'accès à l'énergie. À mon avis, également, c'est des domaines et des indicateurs extrêmement importants qui nous permettront en tout cas de savoir un peu plus l'évolution de la situation sociale de cette partie de la région d'Afrique. Je voulais juste terminer en tout cas par réitérer une requête qui a été formulée, je pense, par la délégation marocaine. C'est de demander à la CA de continuer à nous appuyer, notamment sur la collecte, le traitement et la consolidation de nos statistiques, pas seulement les statistiques économiques, mais également les statistiques sociales, pour nous permettre en tout cas d'avoir une idée, d'avoir beaucoup plus de précision sur les indicateurs que nous aurons à publier et sur lesquels seront bâties toutes nos stratégies politiques de développement. Je vous remercie.
Merci la Mauritanie pour la pertinence et le soutien aussi à l'Afrique du Nord. On donne la parole. Le Maroc, oui, merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je félicite d'abord les intervenants pour les interventions assez claires et importantes. Et je tiens d'abord à féliciter l'IDEP pour tout le travail qu'il fait pour le renforcement des capacités en faveur de nos pays en termes de formation, en termes de planification et d'administration, et aussi en termes de formation en ce qui concerne les nouveaux programmes de développement, notamment les agendas 2030 et 2060.
63. I'd like to express the need in terms of capacity building with respect to the objectives that we have set, which ambitious projects, rather ambitious objectives, which relate to sustainable development, which are interconnected and quite complicated. So we need tools to enable us to be able to achieve those objectives and align those objectives to our policies, strategies, programs, actions and measures, and be able to prioritize targets with respect to the national context. I'd like to congratulate IDEP for, first of all, for the programs in which they have dwelt, from which we benefited in terms of capacity building, and I wish to express our need for more capacity building to be able to meet the needs that you have within context of that program. Thank you. Thank you so much. Morocco. It's the same expressed for the need in terms of capacity building, which we see. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me take the opportunity to commend you, since this is my first time to take the platform, for the manner in which you are handling the proceeding. We really appreciate it. Let me also thank the presenters for illuminating presentation that we've just had. They're very insightful, and just in advance, because I'm not sure if I'll ever take the platform again, in terms of these reports, they are very clear. But in advance, let me also wish all our mothers a happy Mother's Day for tomorrow. Mr. Chairperson, my first inputs are on the report of the EDAP. I've got a few questions. I think you'll bear with me if I take much of your time, but I'll try to be as fast as I can. On the page or paragraph 10 of the report, which is page 2, it talks about the participation of women, which has now decreased from 40% to 28%. Mr. Chairperson, that must be a worrying factor in an era where we're trying to move towards gender parity, because it's our considered view that gender parity is no longer an option, but a mandatory. Now, if the limitations have been acknowledged in terms of the participation of women, what mitigating factors have been developed to counter those limitations that have been identified? I didn't really hear what is being done, other than to say efforts were tried. If we could just get a clarity in terms of what exactly are those efforts, and to what extent are they being stretched out? Then on page, Chairperson, on paragraph 12 of the master's degree program, I see that South Africa is one of the hosts of the master's program, and Egypt is being, there's the collaboration that are being instituted with the Egyptians in terms of that. Can maybe out of transparency, can we then be told or advised, how does the institute determine the host and a particular university for collaboration? Yeah, in terms of getting that collaboration with a particular institution from a particular host country. What is the process there? In addition to that, what is the criteria for one to qualify for the program, for that master's program? If you want to do the program, what exactly is it you need to do? How is it advertised, and where? Since its inception in 2016 today, what has been the throughput from the University of Johannesburg in terms of your student numbers? How many did you enroll, and how many have now completed the masters? And if you don't mind, can you just try to disaggregate that for us in terms of the age group, women and men? And the reason why I'm saying youth is mainly because all of us will agree that the greatest asset for us in Africa is youth. And whatever we do, we have to make sure that we cater them. Unless we do something about our youth, it means we're now sitting on a time bomb, which in very soon it will explode, and then all of us will be in trouble. Then on paragraph 17, Mr. Chairperson, the training that is being offered, my direct question there is, what role implicit envisaged by EDAP in relation to the current institutional reforms of the AU in terms of capacity building for either staff or African diplomatic corps in Addis Ababa? I've seen that the concentration of people are being trained does not include African diplomacy, and I think they, like most of us, we are sitting here now, must go back to the head office. And some years we lack capacity and expertise. Therefore, we have to be able to implement some of these policies and so on. But then, the training possibilities and opportunities for us are limited. So, what is it that is being done, particularly of the reforms of the Then I'll take you to which I think this must be the last one in terms of the financial resources. I'll just say upfront, Chairperson, that my country is not the countries that they in terms of the payment, in terms of the, but in terms of the table, it doesn't really show that we are in arrears, and that's what I've been also told from home. But that's none that is sorting out that the member states that have made, 3 member states were mentioned: Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, and Kenya. You only reflect figures for the other 2 member states seem to suggest that there was safe so I don't know if it just limited in terms of what is captured in the paragraph and what is reflected on the table. So if you could just tell us why is that only pay and others, the others not. But I also think that I think the approach of the university there is not really in good taste. If you owe, you owe, and you pay, you actually fulfill your obligation. The other member states that are considered paid, and my country has paid, but I think the problem is our financial year. It's not from January to December. It works the other way around, and it will always reflect as if we are that is something that is to be considered when this is. We should not consider it only in terms of payment having to be made from January to December, but also up to our financial year start from 1st April to 31st March. Thank you. And then the last one, paragraph 38. We actually applaud your work in terms of recouping more revenue for 2017, and we appreciate that. Then it actually shows that there's something that you are doing differently. When I was reading that paragraph there, my conclusion could be that the problem does not always lie with the member states. Perhaps the problem is within. That member states were not reminded that they have to be. So whatever you're doing now was supposed to have been done since 2013, and it would have reflected the same way as it is today. We have been able to accumulate more in terms of our revenue. That's it. And then in terms of the last presentation on Africa Regional Forum Sustainable Development, there's a weaknesses that have been identified in terms of weak data and data gaps, and that weakness has come through. It's in terms of too many presentations listened to. It's actually seems to be a consistent threat to us as a continent. Now, my question is, what measures are being taken to address that gap? Because you need data to plan for your development and to formulate your policies. Without that data, there's absolutely nothing that you can do. Chairperson, thank you very much for your indulgence.
D'accord, merci. Il y a beaucoup de questions, mais bon, intéressantes. Peut-être les éléments de réponse pourront être répartis entre les différents présentateurs. Nous allons passer la parole à l'Ivoire, ensuite il y a la Guinée et le Sénégal.
Followed by Guinea. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to commend all the presenters for the excellent presentation made since morning. And allow me, Mr. Chairman, following the presentation from Morocco and the distinguished representative of South Africa, let me come back to the report of EDEP. I'd like to say that some of my concerns have been taken care of by South Africa concerning the issue to do with capacity building of the African diplomats, especially those who are present here in Addis Ababa. The second concern is about the payment of the contributions with respect to the table which was projected on the screen. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to share an experience as a former leader of EDEP, because I was an intern of EDEP for a short training 5 years back. I noted the quality of the training that is provided by that institution. But when I went back home, I noted that that institution was unknown with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. When I consulted, right from 65 up to the time when I went to EDEP, I noted that I was the first person from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of my country to participate in a training in EDEP. So this really was of concern. I went to contact the Director of Human Resources in my country to ensure that our institution could participate in those trainings, which were of good quality, in my opinion. I'd like to tell the director that given that experience, it seems to me that EDEP would really benefit from popularizing those courses to the member states, so that more and more people can participate, in a more practical manner in those courses. I noted that the library has a lot of wealth. The director talked about over 3,200 works that have been computerized. So I'd like to request that what are the partnerships which exist? Do we have any partnerships that exist between EDEP and the research, the national research institutions or university institutions, such as the administrative schools and national universities? Because it seems to me that that should be important. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire, for that good contribution. I hope that you will receive answers to your question. Now, we'd like to give the floor to Guinea. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, in turn, commend all the speakers, all the presenters. A person from Côte d'Ivoire who spoke before me has taken care of some of my concerns, but I'd like to address my congratulations towards the ECA, which supported Guinea. Now, this is an institute, which is close to Guinea, which is supporting Guinea since 2013. The Minister of Planning and International Cooperation, with the financial support from the ADB, was able to work, and IDEP brought in training in Guinea. And experts came to Guinea to train us in 4 modules. And today, the department in which I
refer to that department, and the officials who have been part of that training are key in those planning processes. So I wanted to highlight that testimony to support what Madam Director said, or the report that the officials from IDEP have presented, and they have made a recommendation on the financial capacity of IDEP, and I'm of the view that that recommendation should be looked at closely, and I believe that it should be considered by the relevant authorities, and in particular the ministers. So that was the first point on my acknowledgement. I also have some concerns. Often we talk about the 2030 agenda. We also talk about the 2063 agenda as well. However, I do not know whether there is someone here in the room to whom I'm going to present my concern, that's someone who can tell me his experience in regards to the implementation of Agenda 2063 in their country, because what we have noted is that that agenda is not well known. The 2063 agenda is not well known, and that agenda is not being followed up in terms of its implementation. It's an African document. It needs to be supported, and we need to find all the means necessary so that it may be implemented in line or alongside the Agenda 2030, and to ensure that it's monitored as well. An additional point is one which was already highlighted by Côte d'Ivoire, which relates to the partnership between IDEP and other training institutions such as the Statistics Institute. If we could, just as is the case for IDEP, create an African Statistics Institute, because there is a major challenge when it comes to statistics in Africa, not just in Africa. However, what IDEP is doing, if we could have an African institute, a statistics institute, I do know that these institutes exist. However, they should be organized in the same manner in which IDEP is organized. I believe that we could be able to find solutions to the challenges that we face when it comes to statistics. I'd like to come back to the issue of Leslek. I read the report. That is the CFTA. So when it comes to the CFTA, extractive activities are key, as well as trade. However, today, if I take my country, which is very rich in several minerals, such as bauxite, 40 million tons of reserves of bauxite, has UNECA thought about proposing measures for supporting countries that are rich in natural resources but don't have the resources to exploit, process, and move on to the industrialization in regards to those specific resources. Because when I look at Guinea today, we are working with the Chinese, they're exporting the natural resources. In 2014, for instance, the volume of bauxite exported in raw form was 18 million tons, and in 2016, 46 million tons were also exported following the massive arrival of Chinese companies. If we could find a solution to this in context of the CFTA, we could find approaches that enable the continent to exploit and process its natural resources within the continent. Thank you very much. Thank you for those comments and those questions. Perhaps in regards to Agenda 2063, Fatima Danton will be able to respond, and also others will be able to make comments on those that have been asked. Senegal, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I thank the presenters, particularly the IDEP Institute, and I also thank the head of the West Africa Sub-Regional Office. They've been of much support to us in the sub-region. I commend the capacity building done by the sub-regional office, particularly when it comes to planning systems and also putting in place planning and monitoring systems for the medium and long term. There is currently a meeting that is taking place now on these issues. I also thank ECA for their commitment to the review of plans within member countries. I would like to know, a number of countries are working on this, but are we really doing what we are supposed to do? Databases are different between countries. For some, we are working on various baselines, and some have been working based on various years. So can we ensure that we are able to have better comparability? That's a question that is for the regional office. The second question is in regards to the last IC that took place in 2017. That is, there were quite a number of recommendations, and there were a number of topics such as the single currency. We had to look at things like convergence criteria, and also what can be done to fast track the monetary integration process. I thank Metro Sangha for the information that they gave us in regards to the acceleration towards the single currency. This is a serious project, especially as we go towards 2020. But now, when we talk about this, are there any prerequisites? We have a roadmap, but we need to have some visits. We are 2 years before 2020. When it comes to the exchange, when it comes to trade aspects as well, the process has faced the issues to do with financing, and so what's happening with financing? Are we ready to finance to our postponements? Because we've had to postpone many times. So we have said we are no longer going to postpone. Is UNECA or the countries or the heads of state working in the task force ready to finance the preliminary activities that have to take place before 2020? convergence criteria have been the subject of many debates, many discussions. The important thing is that we have a single currency. However, there are issues of convergence that come up. There are also gaps between economies within the region. So we have very diversified economies, and all these are issues that really need to be tackled. So I just wanted to know from the regional office what is going to be done. We have requested to have a meeting to debate and discuss on these issues, to be able to come up with guidelines and avoid any other postponements. Now, when it comes to the continental free trade area, Guinea has tackled this issue. We are really focusing on transformation of extractive industries and also on industrialization, given that many contracts within the extractive sector have already been signed for periods of about 20 years. So what's going to happen in regards to that? We're going to be moving forward. However, in the area of extractive sectors, are we going to be able to roll back some of these trends? And also there is the issue of capacity building. And obviously I'm addressing this to IDEP and UNECA, because often we have challenges of capacity in terms of negotiation within extractive industry, industrial sectors. So we don't have enough experts who have skills when it comes to contracts, and sometimes we have to walk away from contracts, and it tends to be very expensive for public projects and budgets rather. And we also notice that sometimes we have signed a 20-year contract which will force future generations to pay for some of the debt we get into, and this can actually be a challenge. Thank you very much. Thank you to Senegal. Namibia.
Thanks to members for their excellent presentations. I would like to start with presentation on the ICEs, specifically on Southern Africa, SADC. I wanted to ask regarding value chains in SADC or Southern Africa, and want to ask what concrete contributions are there by UNECA towards the strengthening of capacities to establish and to enhance value chains in SADC in light of the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap, and of course in light of the recently established AFCFTA. There was some mention of, in the observations in the report from Bulawayo, some of the observations that the development state approach coupled with political will would be good to drive implementation of regional projects and national projects. And also there was an observation that the state-led enterprises or SOEs are actually at loss making. So how do we look at these two issues and come up with a way that would enhance the state-led development? The next question to the presenter on IDEP. I was looking through the report. I couldn't find lists of the current members of the governing council and also the technical committee. Maybe we can get information on who they are. How long have they been serving? And then when is their term due? I take note of the draft statutes or the revised statute. So I take it the council adopts or constitutes and nominates technical members of the technical committee, but then the members of the technical committee, as it is actually on recommendation of the chair. So I see there's a constitution of the committee, which is fine, and the chair actually recommends the actual members, and then the governing council appoints them, I guess. So we'd just like to get clarity on that, but also on the actual members now and when their term is due. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Namibia. Ghana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to join my colleagues to thank the directors for very wonderful presentations. Incidentally, my question is also to IDEP. Sorry for burdening you, but I think your presentation has really caught our attention. First of all, I want to know how we ensure that the programs that IDEP has are disseminated to individual countries. I note that there's a recommendation for technical advisory committees and governing councils that have representations from the regional institutions or regional bodies, but how do we ensure that issues of IDEP, programs of IDEP, and kinds of the work program of IDEP is disseminated to individual countries? My second question is also on whether IDEP has any collaboration with the regional capacity building institutions. I'm very much interested in your online programs. I think that if this is known to a wider body, you will see that the participation will go very far. How does IDEP reach out to individual countries? And my last issue is on the financial contribution. How is it determined? I was looking at the countries, and I don't see Ghana. I don't know. Did you approach us, and what is the rationale, or how is it determined? Maybe to help us to, since we all of us seem to be interested in your courses and in your capacity development agenda, which has been reflected in almost all the documents that have been presented. I think that for those of us showing interest, there must be also some kind of commitment that will help to support the agenda. Thank you. My colleague has something to add, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd like to add my voice to other colleagues to congratulate our presenters for the wonderful presentations. I also like to congratulate ECA, especially on the single currency program. I know you've been very supportive to the ECOWAS Commission, and currently I know there's a report that ECA is assisting the ECOWAS Commission prepare, and I'd like to know the state of that report. Lastly, we are well aware that the Authority of Heads of States and Governors of the ECOWAS Commission are very committed to the single currency program. However, when I look at your report, page 9 of the report, you indicated that we need to lobby a particular country and the Conference of Heads of State with regards to the single currency program. We are well aware that ECOWAS is about 15 countries, so I was just wondering why we want to lobby a particular country. So if we can come clearly on the kind of lobby we are talking about. Thank you very much.
D'accord, merci beaucoup. Merci pour ces questions. Donc on va demander aux présentateurs de réagir. Je pense qu'ils sont tous interpellés. Il y a des questions beaucoup plus ciblées.
There are some questions that are specifically addressed to IDEP. So I'd like the presenter to start, given that the other areas are going. Kenya, you want to take the floor? We have a challenge of time. 5 minutes.
I understand. Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me this opportunity also to make my contribution. First, I wish to join those who have spoken before me to commend the presenters. Their presentations are indeed excellent. Secondly, I want to find out from the director of IDEP. First of all, commend her for the good work which IDEP is doing in building capacity for African states in the area of development planning in general. More specifically, to echo what my sister from Ghana was talking about, engaging other capacity development institutions like the African Capacity Building Foundation, maybe regional economic communities, and NEPAT in particular, to come up with relevant programs that might address specific needs. Like if you look at the kind of frameworks that have been approved by the African Union, which have been given to NEPAD for implementation, indeed there is need for capacity building to realize their objectives, and we feel that the institute in the car would indeed do a commendable job by supporting those initiatives, by offering relevant and tailoring relevant training to ensure they succeed. More importantly, recently there is the heads of state have given approval for the CFTA, and this is an important milestone in the economic development of this continent. But this, to be realized, it requires serious upgrading of skills, and we feel that maybe the institute should also give focus to this area so that they can tailor courses which would respond to specific needs of African regions and African countries. I'm also saying that the master's course the institute is focusing to implement in conjunction with the institute in Egypt is very important, and perhaps it should address the needs of all the regions of the continent, given that this would be very specific course which I see that to not been given to many prospective candidates from the rest of the continent. I think it's better that we draw upon students from all the regions of the continent as a beginning, but later maybe can be decentralized to the regional level. Let me also say that Kenya is willing to work closely with IDEP in order to implement these programs, which are quite important for the development of the continent as a whole. And we will continue to provide our contribution the way we have been making advanced contributions. I think we should continue in the same spirit. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup pour cette initiative. Donc nous allons donner la parole à l'IDEP, ensuite à tous les représentants des...
as well as to the representatives of the other regions. IDEP, you have the floor. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I don't know how you would like me to approach my response, because there were quite a number of questions. I would like to first of all thank all those who have expressed comments and questions, especially those who made suggestions in the context of their interventions. Just as a preamble to what I'm going to say is that we have many courses on negotiations, and I would like to join one of the courses, perhaps because I tried to negotiate for more than 15 minutes for my presentation, but the president or the chair did not give in to my request, so perhaps we could have some more time so that we could be able to cover everything that IDEP does. So in that sense, we couldn't cover everything in terms of what we offer as services. There's a number of questions that have been asked in regards to financial aspects. Just a quick clarification on a confusion that seems to have been noted. Perhaps there is no confusion, but countries that are mentioned are those that are recognized on the offer payments. However, the payments that are in the table are payments that were made in 2017. So there's a number of countries that are not in the table, but that had made payments in advance. Those ones are acknowledged in the text, but are not appearing in the table. And I take note of the comment from the delegate of South Africa, because indeed I want to note that their country has just paid 2 contributions back to back.
Some of them maybe can be taken on a bilateral basis because they are specific to South Africa. So I will just focus on those that maybe are of interest to the rest of the participants. First of all, about women participation. For us, it is a priority, and it is part of what we are really trying to achieve. Now, we have explained the limitation, and you asked in the report, and you have asked about the mitigation measures that we are taking. First of all, we try to encourage our alumni, our former trainees, to contact and disseminate our call for participation to women, to their women colleagues in their institution. We also reach out to women who have participated in our meetings and training so that they themselves encourage their peers and their colleagues. Now, in terms of percentages, we are not convinced that we can, despite lengthy discussions that have taken place during our technical advisory meeting and governing council, we at EDEP, we think that what we need to do is to work on numbers. And that's why we think that the e-learning program is an opportunity to improve the numbers. Now, in terms of another mitigation measure is to try to to go for an acceptable positive discrimination when we have several candidates for a course, to give precedence to win participation. You mentioned, and other colleagues, other distinguished participants referred to our collaboration with university, think tanks, research center in the continent. We are doing it. How we select them, it is a result of past experiences of collaboration. Some of them are the host of some of our the resource person who participate in our courses. So there are no predetermined criteria, but efficiency, effectiveness, and willing to serve Africa more and better. So these are the main criteria we are using in selecting our partnerships. In terms of participation and in our courses, we have a broadly disseminated call for participation, and you have seen in the figures I've shared with you that we have this year we have received more than 3,000 application for just 20 courses, meaning 500 seats, which means that we need to really improve our offer in terms of number of people who benefit. Again, for South Africa, the listing of, and I say this because it is of interest to many countries, the listing of those who have contributed last year is a request that has come from COM and the Governing Council. And initially the idea was to put whole list, and we thought that a name and shame approach would not be a good taste approach. So we have just chosen to identify those who have contributed so that we encourage others. But we are also very much aware that there are particular circumstances for some countries that prevent them from paying for a number of years, etc. So we have a flexible approach. We are just sending an invitation for member states, especially those who think that their people are benefiting from EDEP services, to contribute more, because the demand is increasing, the expectation of member states are increasing, and we need to do more and better. What else do I have here? En termes de communication, nous...
When you talk about communication, we know that there is a gap, and we are dealing with this issue. So with that, I think that in the coming years, we shall be more effective and more efficient. Then the other things that, the last thing which I'm going to mention before giving the floor to the other colleagues, is that we are working on the involvement of the diplomatic corps on a number of things. First of all, on the 24th May, we shall organize a meeting with all the African diplomats, and this will be a documented meeting on the theme of this year of the African Union, which is the fight against corruption, with the analyses that are made, the publications made, and a number of partner institutions are going to be present, and we shall be able to do the same thing in Addis Ababa subsequently. So I'm waiting for your proposals on that. Now, in terms of the involvement of the representatives of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I agree with IDEP. The training on negotiation, which they have involved mainly the technical people, the technocrats. We have people working in mines. When we talk about trade, we have people from trade and economic development, and so on. So I added a certain number of seats for the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, so that they are involved fully in this negotiating process. So that is a dialogue between the sectoral sector and the negotiations within the framework of foreign affairs. These are things which exist, and we shall be able to widen them with your recommendation and your support. I don't know how much time I still have, Mr. Chairman. I don't know whether I've gone beyond what you gave me, because there are so many things to say. But I'm still around, as you will see. You can contact me for more details. But I can say that I can tell the Honorable Delegate of Namibia that the members of the Administrative Council and the Consultative Technical Committee were supported, and we can distribute and share what we have with the delegate after this session. Thank you very much. Discussions will continue in the corridors afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There were no specific questions for the regional office of North Africa, but I'd like to respond to Mauritania concerning the report that was included in the report. A request to include more indicators on the socio-economic aspect. So we take note of your concerns, and we shall do our best to include those aspects in the report in matters of social and economic development in the sub-region. We're also working in a more targeted manner in the regional development, so we shall try to go into details in that, look at the trade within the region and the potential and the opportunities that the region presents for a better trade, and be able to develop trade within the region. And as I said earlier on in the presentation, we are focusing on the problem of employment and how to ensure that we have economies that can produce jobs. And I think this involves the private sector, and it calls for more collaboration and interaction and interconnection between the different countries of the sub-region in particular. Now, concerning capacity development of the countries of the sub-region in the statistical area, I thank you for that comment, and I think that we shall be able to continue retaining that area. I would like to say that support is undertaken within a structure, a South Cooperation Network with the knowledge of the sub-region, and we try to ensure that we use, we undertake exchange and support with the countries of the sub-region to extend the use of best practices and ensure that different countries can be able to benefit from this. So we want to continue to support Mauritania, and we will extend this support to other countries that need that support and those that express the need for the support. Now, concerning the comment on 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda, I'd like to say that we have made an assessment of the implementation of the Agenda 2030 in the region, and we have tried to look at the interconnections between the 2030 and 2060 agenda through a regional meeting, and we noted that few countries in North Africa are sensitized with respect to the 2063 agenda, and we try. And we're going to try to, to include this aspect in the activities to bring in, presentation and awareness with respect to Agenda 2063, and to try to create a link between the two agendas so that, they are well known to as a whole. So countries should be able to draw benefits from the objectives of the two agendas. Obviously, the first one will be able to link to 2063 agenda. We are making efforts in that line, and we need to carry out awareness. This is a big challenge in North Africa, because often the Northern African countries are associated with the Arab countries, and they are less sensitive and less informed with respect to the Agenda 2063 needs details. So we are trying to make sure that this is solved. West Africa, yes. On the single currency, there was a question on that.
Yes, Chair, I will start by speaking in English because I don't want something to fall into the crack when I'm responding to the honorable delegate from Ghana. Lobby a particular country. Let me start by saying that when you read the report from the eyes from West Africa, it is not the ECA report, it's your report. It's the report of member states from West Africa. And then when you look at the recommendations, you have recommendations to the ECA, you have recommendations to member states, and then you have recommendations to the ECOWAS. On that particular recommendation that is alluding to not a particular country, which is Nigeria, it is saying this: lobby Nigeria and the Conference of Heads of State of the West African Economic and Monetary Union to accelerate the process of creating a single currency. This is because the discussions that we had, very rich discussions that we had in Ouagadougou on the single currency, led to the following conclusion. When we look at regions that have adopted a current common currency across the world, they did not necessarily wait for having an optimal monetary zone to go toward that. In addition to economic considerations, there are political considerations to move toward a single currency. And then when you look at this recommendation, there are two forces in West Africa. You have Nigeria, that is a heavyweight in West Africa. You cannot go toward a common currency without Nigeria. You have the CFA zone in West Africa, the 8 countries that are part of the UEMOA. You cannot move toward a single currency in West Africa without convincing these 8 countries of the benefit that they will have to leave the CFA zone and go toward a common currency. And therefore, you, member states, have decided to take that the ECOWAS, this is a recommendation to the ECOWAS, takes the necessary measure to lobby the 2 blocs to deal with the political issues in addition to real economic issues so that we move toward the common currency. And what's the role of the ECA in that one? It comes just down there. We have to provide both the ECOWAS and you as member states with relevant studies, analysis, so that you can decide and not the ECA, and that's what we have been doing, working with the Presidential Task Force. This helps me also to respond to the question from our colleague from Senegal. Now, let me move to Guinea. Je voudrais ici aussi aller dans le sens de ma collègue de l'Afrique du Nord et dire que je ne pense pas qu'on va parler de travailler parallèlement sur deux agendas. Ces deux agendas sont ensemble, agenda 2030 et agenda 2063. Et de fait, la CEA, l'Union africaine, la Banque africaine de développement, nous avons travaillé sur ces cadres et nous avons démontré qu'il y a vraiment convergence, un certain bon pourcentage de convergence entre ces cadres, incluant le fait que pour les questions de suivi et d'évaluation, il n'est pas question d'avoir un cadre de suivi et d'évaluation pour le plan national de développement, un autre pour l'agenda 2063, un troisième pour l'agenda 2030. Il faut un cadre unifié de suivi et d'évaluation. Et ce sont les choses sur lesquelles nous sommes prêts. Nous avons déjà commencé à travailler avec certains pays, certains d'entre vous. J'en profite pour rebondir sur la question sur les statistiques. C'est une question pérenne. Ça fait 13 ans que je suis à la CEA et lorsque je portais l'ancien chapeau des directeurs de la statistique, c'est une question qui revient à chaque conférence des ministres. Et je voudrais dire ceci sur ce point. Nous sommes très bons en tant qu'Africains à travailler sur des cadres, des plans, des stratégies qui feraient pâlir d'envie n'importe qui à travers le monde. Le problème que nous avons, c'est un problème de mise en œuvre. Le problème de se donner les moyens qu'il faut pour les mettre en œuvre. En ce qui concerne les données, nous avons un cadre continental. Les autres régions du monde n'en ont même pas. Nous avons la stratégie pour l'harmonisation des statistiques en Afrique qui est sous le leadership de l'Union africaine, qui a défini très bien ce qu'il faut faire pour avoir les données pour faire le suivi de l'agenda 2063 et l'agenda 2030. Deux points fondamentaux pour mettre en œuvre ces stratégies. C'est les ressources, c'est la volonté. Les ressources au niveau des pays, les ressources au niveau des institutions qui doivent vous accompagner. Voilà pourquoi je dirais qu'il faut qu'on passe des stratégies vers ce qu'il nous faut pour pouvoir mettre en œuvre ces stratégies-là.
D'accord.
Ça me permet de dire que sur créer un institut africain de la statistique, c'est déjà fait.
Vous avez une minute. Hein?
Sur papier, nous l'avons et ça doit être basé à Yamoussoukro. Mais encore une fois, là-bas, il faut qu'on puisse l'opérationnaliser. Voilà. Finalement, sur la révision des PIB, nous avons déjà commencé avec la Guinée, le Bénin, le Togo qui ont fait une demande. Ben, encore une fois là-bas, il y a des choses que les institutions vont faire, des choses que les pays vont faire, et c'est une question de ressources. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, merci. Afrique centrale. Ensuite, Afrique.
Yeah, thank you. Even though there was no question which was specific to Central Africa, there were a couple of comments which linked to the point that we made about economic diversification. This stems from what Mauritania said about the state of their economy and the fact that their excessive dependence on the export of minerals have created some sort of macroeconomic instability, iron ore prices and so on, and the comment from Guinea also about bauxite and so on. I mean, our standing in the ECA is that indeed these resources should be the basis for development. However, one needs to reduce the excessive dependence on the export of commodities. All the work that I'm sure my colleague will talk about later, that the African Minerals Development Center has been doing is predicated exactly on the importance of the resources for the continent, but the need to add value to them, everything that is under the African Mining Vision. And on that front, EDEP runs a course on mineral policy negotiations. It's part of their regular courses every year. and it's meant to help countries negotiate better their contracts and so on and so forth. Again, there is an effort by the OECD, the latest guidance, with a couple of principles on how to negotiate better, what are the key elements that align the different interests, that mainly of the importing countries that want access to resources for their own industrialization, as well as of the producing countries that want those resources for their own development. So there are a couple of key elements that need to be included in all of the contracts, but this is work in progress. The overall position is that it's better to regulate than negotiate. So if you have very good laws, policies and so on, then it reduces the extent to which you have to regulate. Then the last point that I wanted to speak to is what my colleagues have been saying. ECA has a position about alignment Agenda 2030 with Agenda 2063. They have tools and models to allow countries to ensure that they only work with one monitoring framework. We are currently supporting Congo and Cameroon into deploying those tools. This is comes from my colleague Adam from the Macroeconomic Policy Division, and this is services that are available for any country that requires that effort. It's an important agenda aligning 2030, 2063 with development frameworks. Thank you.
Ok, merci. Je pense que vous avez... Est-ce qu'il y a une réaction de l'Afrique? Oui, merci beaucoup. L'Afrique australe aussi, je pense que la question a été répondue.
Thank you very much, Chair. There were two comments that came from the Namibian delegate. One was on regional value chains and what is it that EC is doing. There were two questions that came from the Namibian delegate on what is ECA doing on regional value chains within the context of the SADC industrialization strategy and roadmap. And I think on this we've been doing a lot. First is to say that ECA was the principal partner that supported SADC in the development of that strategy in 2015. We also supported SADC in developing the costed action plan of that strategy. Thirdly, we are currently supporting SADC in the implementation of that strategy now, and how member states are going to domesticate that strategy within the context of their national industrial and trade policies. Within that context also, we are supporting SADC currently to develop a framework for small and medium-scale enterprises and their role in regional value chains in the industrialization process. And other related arm of the ECA are also working with us on the issue of regional value chains in Southern Africa. For example, together with the African Mining Development Center, we've just supported SADC to develop a SADC mining vision. And we've just also, with the Trade and Regional Integration Division, completed a 5-country case study on regional value chains in Southern Africa. So I think you can see from that that a lot is going on in terms of how we are supporting SADC and Southern Africa and regional value chains. The second question that you raised is about what are we doing to support member states on the issue of public enterprise and the losses that they are making in their respective countries. I would want to really focus on our support to Namibia in this case. We've been working very closely with the Prime Minister's office and also the Secretary to the Cabinet of Namibia, Mr. George Simanta, on how we can really support the strength of the public service. We supported the government of Namibia to develop a performance management system for senior public office holders and also a performance contract regime for them. And as you know, currently ministers in Namibia sign performance contracts. ECA was the principal partner that facilitated that. And we are currently working with Namibia as well in developing an integrated performance management system that incorporates both the one for public office holders together with the one of senior public servants, particularly permanent secretaries. And currently we're also having discussion with the Ministry of Public Enterprises on how we can reverse the trend
in loss-making public enterprises, particularly in Namibia. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup au directeur du bureau Afrique australe, Fatoumata.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I think most of the questions that were asked have already been sort of answered by my colleagues. Just maybe one plea I wanted to make with regard to the delegate from Guinea. I think you mentioned the importance of these, bring these two agendas together. I think both for Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063, this is mainly about localizing these frameworks. So it only takes shape in a local context. So therefore, your intelligence in terms of how you're doing it. We talk a lot about the synergies between the two agendas, but we don't get a lot of feedback in terms of where they meet, where they cross-fertilize, where there are tension points. So I think in addition to what we as ECA are doing, and in collaboration with the AUC, we also do need to have this intelligence and this feedback coming from you to understand better how we can address some of these challenges. So that's just a plea I wanted to make. And I think very quickly to the delegate from South Africa, and I think your question has already been addressed to a large extent by colleagues here about the importance of statistics. And I think we all talk about statistics in a deficit, deficit terms. Because we know that if we have statistics that are weak, if they're unevenly distributed across the continent, if they're not credible enough, it doesn't help us in terms of making evidence-based decision-making. So we recognize this, having functional statistical infrastructure is important. And I think ECA's task is really about helping countries in the region in terms of the collection, the dissemination, the analysis of statistics, indicators in social and economic and demography that would help us to really do just what I said in terms of making good decisions, making good policies, but also in terms of monitoring social and economic indicators. And I think to this extent, it's probably worth mentioning that ECA has been working on a statistical database for economic data, and also there's a one-stop shop for validated data and metadata as well. And maybe the other product I should mention is a statistical pocketbook, which I think includes harmonized data for all the 54 countries. And I think my colleagues from the African Center for Statistics are doing quite a lot in terms of ensuring that the results of this pocketbook is disseminated widely, and they're doing this through a number of workshops that they're conducting across the region. So I think we recognize this, the weakness of the data, but I think we ourselves do not pat ourselves on the back enough to talk about progress that we're making related to this weak statistical infrastructure and database. And I think ECA is already doing quite a lot. And maybe in the course of the next couple of days, we'll be able to get to hear a little bit more about what ECA is doing in this area. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Fatoumata. Merci aussi à tous les présentateurs, les délégués
who have raised questions and comments. Now, in conclusion, we can say that the issue of capacity building is essential, it's crucial, and that has been highlighted by many delegates. Yes, Namibia, we need to manage time, because yesterday I think we were not able to go for lunch because the restaurants had already closed. So we need, yes, quickly, 1 or 2 minutes, because these are ideas, isn't it? Yes, English speaking. Namibia.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, for indulging us. I think I just wanted to make comment on the issue of the single currency in West Africa, and the fact that we all know the strong influence by France in that region in terms of Francophonie. So just wanted to ask how that has been handled and dealt with. Thank you.
Oui.
Yes, it's crucial, but quickly, Director, please.
Thank you, Nabimia, for that question. This is a question to member states from West Africa. We are advisors. We are helping them to produce report that and studies that will tell them what are the advantages and so on, what are the issues that they should be dealing with before they go there. Our colleague from Senegal was alluding to a calendar that we need to follow to go to the common currency. They asked us to revise that, we did. The issue you are alluding to is a highly political and sensitive one that is being dealt with by member states, especially through this presidential task force that they've put in place. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. C'est une question importante et très sensible à la fois. Mais bon, je pense que les points de vue aussi sont très diversifiés. Donc, je disais tout à l'heure que...
Earlier on that the issue of capacity development has been seen quite a lot, and we have also raised the importance of statistics, as well as the problems that we are facing, and the issue of harmonizing them, as well as the sharing, as well as the reflections from within the area of the ECA. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of information, and many studies undertaken, and which we need to share. And the issue on the promotion of what IDEP is doing, it's important. And these are not well known from the point of view of different speakers. Also, specific issues were raised, like the single currency. There's a speaker from Namibia who raised a question which was sensitive. But the issue of export of raw materials within the framework of the free zone is a problem which needs to be documented. So we have had quite a number of ideas and comments, and we congratulate the different presenters, but as well as the delegates for having made those comments and having raised relevant issues. We congratulate the presenters for the answers given. As I said earlier on, we have time constraints. At around 2, we need to go to the restaurant so that we do not face what we faced yesterday. Many people didn't have lunch because the restaurants had closed. So let me give the floor to Madame, to the Secretary, so that she can give us some information.
Thank you, Chair. Yesterday, during the opening, there was an ad hoc drafting committee established by the members. If I can beg your indulgence to meet with the ECA drafting team focal point for review of the report so far, and the meeting will be held in the delegates' lounge. She's at the back of the room, so she'll try and spot you and move you along. As you can see on the notice board, there's indication of different areas where you will be able to have lunch, and we would really ask for you to be back by 2, I think it's 2 o'clock already. If you can be back by 3 o'clock for the continuation of the meeting. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour ces informations utiles. Donc, je vais passer la parole à Madame. Madame, vous pouvez faire un mot. On a 2 minutes encore. Hein? Juste.
Eh bien, je vais profiter de ces 2 minutes et merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais également saisir cette occasion pour...
To congratulate you, first of all, for your excellent stewardship of these deliberations since morning. I'd like to thank all the delegates who have contributed their wealth to the collaborators here present. However, I'd like to re-echo the issue which you raised concerning the statistics and inform the delegates that we have a side event tomorrow. I don't know exactly at what time it is going to take place, but the director of the ECA Center of Statistics is here, is going to give us more information. This side event is on the issues concerning data statistics, supporting sustainable development. All the delegates who raised issues to do with capacity development in the matter of statistics will have the opportunity to discuss on this issue and see the progress made and the challenges that the continent is facing. I thank you. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned for 1 hour. We can meet again at 3 p.m. to continue with our deliberations. Thank you.